and they're accurate kickers. They know a buffalo usually won't kick unless they're aimed to hit somebody. And
did you train them, or really? That's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
By tracking this second.
What's going on, guys? My name is Noah and this is Broken Arrow Bison. Somebody who I really wanted to be able to get on this YouTube channel and interview was a gentleman by the name of Doc Parsons. Everybody calls him Doc Parsons. He is a tremendous guy. He's been a huge influence on the buffalo community. He's saved a lot of buffalo when it comes down to the medical attention side of things. He's gone out to ranches and farms. Over the years, he travels all the way up from Alaska, all over the US. He's even been asked to go over to Africa. Doc Parsons has a tremendous amount of information that he was able to share with me, and I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. One of the really cool things I thought about Doc's place was he has these two miniature Aussie Shepherds that he uses to corral his buffalo up with. And as you can imagine, corralling buffalo up with dogs has complications in itself, but he was able to kind of work through the kinks and figure out what breed worked best for them. He talked about how the breed was smaller and the buffalo didn't feel like they were as much of a threat to them, but were kind of annoyed. So they kind of ran away from the dogs and ended up going in the direction that the dogs wanted the buffalo to go. There was a lot of really cool things about Doc's place, and I just want to be able to thank Doc Parsons for allowing us in to his ranch and be able to see some insight from a buffalo veterinarian's point of view. Oh, and I almost forgot. For those of you who watched our last video, I asked the question, what temperature does it take for buffalo to start burning fat? And that answer is believed to be somewhere around the nature of 30 below zero before buffalo start burning fat. Another quick trivia I'm going to ask you guys, and leave a comment down below. Tell me your answer and I'll let you know if you got it right the next video, is how high do you think buffalo can jump from a standstill? How high do you think a full-grown bull has been known to jump from a standstill? If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and enjoy the interview. So how many buffalo do you have here?
we have about 95 to 100, depending on how many calves we have at the time.
What got you started in buffalo?
To get out of class. I was in vet school and they come in one day and said, does anyone want to go work buffalo at Lawton? And if you do, tomorrow we'll go down there for class. So I wanted to get out of class, so I went to Lawton, but I was working buffalo there, and I really enjoyed it and liked the animal, and was kind of inspired by the animal to get involved with them and get to know more about them and everything. So after I got out of vet school in 1992, I bought my first one from Lawton and made every mistake in the world you could make with bison. First mistake was buying just one. They're a lot like sheep. They're a herding animal. They need friends or buddies or someone like that to get along with. So we basically stressed that animal out of his life. I mean, he just, we tried to gentle him down, break him to lead, and do all these things. And like I said, we did everything wrong. So then I decided I better learn about them if I'm going to deal with them. And so I started working with the state and national associations and getting questions and answers from them, and getting involved, and even made trips into Canada and Washington different places where they had a lot of herds of bison, and to get questions answered and to learn about the bison. So that's kind of how I got started in them. And then after that, I come back and went and bought 2 heifers, and we had a corral up here in the front. People seen them on the highway out here, so we I didn't have them a week. Somebody come along and offered me twice what I paid for them. So we sold those and went and bought 4 at the same place, and brought them home. Did the same thing. Didn't have them about a week. They come in off the road and was bought them right off from under us for twice what we paid for them. This was going into what I call the exotic time. Everybody was buying exotics, emus, ostriches, bears, anything odd or different was an exotic. And the bison got caught in that, and so the market just shot up and got real high and crazy. So I had a tough time buying animals because they were so expensive. $4,000 or $5,000 for an animal. So I didn't eat bison for probably a good 5 years. They were so expensive I couldn't afford to eat a $5,000 animal, So then in 2000, the market kind of crashed. The exotic deal collapsed. Everybody had a buffalo that wanted just to have something to look at. So the market dropped down to about a cattle price market, and so I could afford to eat them then, and I really liked it and enjoyed it a lot. And we made bacon and different things, breakfast foods out of it. And then all of a sudden in about 2006 they started doing a lot of research on the nutrition of bison, and come to find out it was low cholesterol, lower than skinless chicken or fish, and it's high in iron. Is one main red meats that's so high in iron, and found out how good it was for me. I was a little reluctant to eat it, it's good for you. You don't really want to eat it, So anyway, I got over that, but then the market came back in by 2006 or 7, and it's been good ever since, and pretty steady because we grew it back, built a market for it, and the associations worked hard on that and built a good market for bison. And so now we have a good market that basically they take up the same space, same amount of feed and everything, but 2 to 3 times the value of beef cattle. So economically it's been a good program for me, and good Lord blessed me with them, and we've done really good with them.
Can you tell us your name and what you do here?
Name is Gerald Parsons. Have a veterinary practice here in Stratford, and we also do a lot of referral type medicine on bison and elk, and we travel out different countries, different states to take care of them. But primarily large animal practice is a big part of our program here.
What made you want to work with bison?
Wanted to work with bison because I got to opportunity to work at Lawton once back when we used trash can lids, and they had the old wooden corrals, and the bison would come out of the chute and the bulls would be upset and they'd come right back on you. It's pretty exciting. But anyway, I got to noticing a pattern, a mentality, social structure of the bison, and it created an interest that we still are learning today about them.
What challenges do you see bison producers facing today?
Challenges on bison producers is competing for grazing areas with cattle, trying to get a place to raise them. Another challenge with the bison is some misconceptions. I really recommend that you learn about them, understand them before you get real involved with them. There's a lot of misconceptions. Bison were here before us, So they should have it all figured out. But we changed here. It ain't here anymore for the bison. We added new parasites, new diseases, new viruses that these animals were never around, didn't know anything about, by importing sheep and cattle, creating a new environment that the bison are having to adapt and overcome. So in the program of a new breeder or a bison producer, you have to help the bison through selection and breeding and parasite control to help these animals in keeping an active production.
What are some of the benefits to raising buffalo or bison?
Well, the benefit, especially for me, I guess would be the best way to tell the story. In beef cattle, the market is controlled more by the government. They can bring in box beef, they can bring in, let live animals come in out of Mexico and totally kill the market in a few days. The bison is a product that, as an individual, you can take it all the way from a calf to a grown animal. So you're cutting out a lot of the middlemen. You're cutting out the opportunities of other people controlling your market. So you have more control of your market. The meat is considered leaner and a healthier product for heart patients that have a coronary heart disease. And then also for women, due to the high iron content, supposed to be one of the top 10 foods for women. They've done a lot of research on the meat program. So again, just all those advantages increase the amount of profit. Right now, a beef cow is, you sell a beef that's ready to butcher and process, you're looking at about $1.50, $2 a pound. And a bison, you're looking at about $3 to $4 a pound. But yet, you've got the same or less expense and amount of time invested in the product that you're producing.
What year did you get started?
We bought our first one, like I said, in 1992. But in 93, after we lost that one, like I said, I did a lot of traveling, checking around and learning. By 94, we built another herd. I thought I was in pretty good shape. We always showed cattle or hogs or pigs or horses or whatever. So pedigree and genetics and quality was really important to me, and so I was pretty selective on my animals. When I bought bison, people made fun of me when I'd say that, and they'd just say, "Do you want to buy a buffalo or not?" But I was pretty selective in that situation. In 95, I went to Denver, the first national convention that I'd went to, and it was actually the first national convention. Originally, there was two different bison associations, and in 95 they came together, so it was a good time for me, but it was just by coincidence that we started that at that time. I went to the convention. I picked out a bull calf there that was really awesome. I was really impressed with him. He came into Denver as a bull calf weighing 780 pounds. And that year, unfortunately for me, he ended up being the grand champion. I mean, the only time a bull calf ever won it, but he's ended up grand champion. But people were afraid of him to buy him. Being young, they didn't know if his semen quality would be good, and so that was kind of a gamble. So we ended up getting him bought anyway. And that was probably one of the best investments I'd ever made. Buying the grand champion bull in 95 was kind of like the top of the line advertisement. Everybody knew the bull. Everybody would call and check on him and see if we had calves out of him or whatever. And then the quality of the animal, to be that big, that young, he cut my feeding time. He cut a whole year off my feed program. It was taking me nearly 30 months or so to get an animal ready to process, to make steaks or whatever. I could do it with his calves in 18 months. So it cut nearly a year off. I learned a lot about genetics on bison, and in doing that, again, it increased the economic value of the animal because I cut some of the expense out of the program.
So it's worth paying more for buffalo at the sale.
Worth paying more for good animals, you know, because of those type of advantages than just having the average male bison. You can take the average male bison and breed them up to that point, but it's going to take you 10 years, you know, where you can buy a good quality animal and start out at that point, instead of wasting the 10 years.
What are some of the common diseases or problems?
Number one, and I get this question asked at least once a day, sometimes more, and I've been asked the question in probably 6 or 7 different languages. Not that I understood that, but eventually we got the communication straightened out where I could understand. And my number one problem always falls back to parasites, primarily Ostratagia and primarily Homunculus. We have had it in different countries, different states, different situations. Here in Oklahoma, we don't see it very often, but we have seen it. Now I used to say it never happened in Oklahoma, but now it has, and that's malignant catarrhal fever. It's spread by sheep. It kills bison rather quickly and can kill a lot of numbers in a very short period of time. In Australia, we have a problem there with, it's called a paralysis tick. It even shuts down paralysis so far that the animals can't breathe. So we do get paralysis in the animals there, and that was a problem we had to overcome. Pneumonias such as mycoplasma is probably the ongoing problem that seems to be reoccurring around the United States at this time. Fortunately, we haven't had that here, but it's probably just a matter of time when it gets here. So again, number one would be parasites, internal parasites, worms, and that's going to cover 90% of the deaths. And it's a primary. It sets up a stress situation where minor things actually kills the bison. It may be just a cold or a flu or little things or even a deer disease, hemorrhagic fever that kill the bison. But the worm was what stressed the animal to the point that set him up for that kind of problem. So 90% of the time it's going to be a worm or a parasite problem. Then we got the MCF or malignant catarrhal fever, then mycoplasma. That's probably going to be your 3 top problems. They still get lepto and anaplasm and a lot of things like cattle, but those are usually minor and don't occur that often.
How much of a factor is stress on buffalo compared to, let's say, cattle or any other livestock for that matter?
Well, even though we tend to forget a lot of times because it's been reported through different extremist groups that we are domesticating this animal, it's still a wild animal. And anytime you have a wild animal, those animals don't adapt to the controls, the confinements. So stress is a big problem. And how you manage and handle your animals as far as stress, and that can be nutrition, parasites, even the attitude or the problem with the owner. I've seen owners that were flighty and aggravated easily, and their animals are a lot the same way, because they'll get loud and scream and holler and go to waving their arms, and then the animals are all excited and scared. The quieter you can be, the slower you can be in moving and changing directions with bison, the bison respond a lot better.
Are there special medications for bison, or do you use the same thing as cattle? What about dosages?
Yeah, very rarely are there any incidents that, other than vaccines, that something is made particularly just for bison. Most of the time, That's why we call this a general practice as a veterinarian, is because we're practicing, we're learning all the time. There's no medicines out there made for these animals, so we have to try it or experiment ourselves in determining what works for the bison. But most of the time, the same antibiotics, the same parasite controls as you use in cattle are going to work in your bison, same doses. The only one primarily that doesn't work, that you have a big difference, is the pour-on wormers. Those, unless you're just trying to control flies or something else, don't work in bison very well at all, because you have so much more hair. They wallow in the dirt, and so there's a bunch of dirt on them. So pouring a pour-on on a bison is just barely better than nothing. So an injectable is always, or a drench is better. So always use your injectables or your drench type wormers.
How important are vaccines with bison?
Well, a predecessor of mine and a peer, Dr. Thorson, he wasn't so big in the vaccines, but after visiting with him a lot and learning from him, we're finding that vaccine is becoming more and more important. There is benefits and advantages. You need to kind of find out about your area, what's going on in your area. There's certain areas that have anaplasma a lot, and so an anaplasma vaccine is important in your program. Lepto is a common problem in different areas, so lepto vaccines work good. I have seen blackleg, the actual clinical disease in bison. Very rare, but it does occur. But more commonly, the clostridials, which is in a blackleg vaccine, create a diarrhea in calves, and can be if you're having a diarrhea problem, this is a vaccine that you'd want to use. We do use the shipping fever vaccines, the IBR, BVD, PI3, BRSV, just like we use in cattle, but it's more as a preventative when the animal gets stressed. Without the stress situation on a bison, their windpipe is larger, their lungs are healthier. You could throw all kind of viruses you wanted to down the throat, down the windpipe of a healthy bison, and he might cough twice, and that's all it'd amount to. But if the animal's stressed, his immune system's depressed, then he can catch anything.
Are the diseases different than in bison than they are cattle?
No, like MCF in cattle, malignant catarrhal fever, the beef cattle may get sick for a few days, but in a few days the bison's dead. So they just react different because they have no immunity to it. So it's a lot the same disease. So I guess I would say, even though a healthy bison is more resistant to disease than beef cattle, once they're depressed due to stress or whatever, anything that depresses their immune system, congregations of large numbers in a small area, they instantly become susceptible, and more susceptible than beef cattle in those situations, to particular diseases.
What's your favorite thing about bison?
The flavor. They are good to eat. Took me a while to get to eat one, but I really enjoy the meat. Probably the next thing is their social structure. I think if we could watch the bison's social structure, understand that, and how they react to different colored bison, how they act to peer pressure, how they react to different situations, it would eliminate a lot of our own problems we have in our own government today.
Buffalo or bison?
Bison. Buffalo is a slang word that when the Europeans came into the U.S., it was added to the bison because the water buffalo was the only thing they had seen to compare to. So they called these American bison, they called them buffalo. It was a slang that stayed for years. And I've heard people say, supposedly people that knew a lot about the bison, some old Indian chiefs and stuff, that one was corn-fed, one was grass-fed, but that's not the difference. The difference is it's a different species. The bison are bison, American bison, so it's bison, not buffalo.
Do you recommend others raise buffalo? And if so, why?
It takes a different mentality. I have some people jump into the bison business. They don't get an education. They think it's going to be a money maker right off the bat. They're usually out of the business in 2 or 3 years wanting to sell out because they didn't get an education. They didn't learn about the bison. They tried to work them as cattle. And so they get aggravated, they get frustrated, and they get out of the business. Then you get people that learn about the bison, understand how they react. They react different than cattle. For me, because I've been around them so much, they're a lot easier to work for than cattle are. Cattle, it takes too many people to work them. I can work my bison herd by myself and do it fairly efficiently. But you can't do that with cattle. You got to have more people to push, more people to work the animals. And bison, if once you learn about them, that's not an issue. So again, it's a good business. There is a lot of money in it, a lot better than cattle. But the person that's getting in the business, get an education first. Be sure that it's for you and not just for the money. Because it'll be a great trip if you get the education first. It'll be a disaster if you don't.
So what do you have going out here? What are the 3 lots?
We have those 2 lots are primarily connected, but what we do is when we wean our calves, we start over here, and I hand feed them for nearly a month, and they get used to me. They get calmed down where they're used to how I work, and I learn how they function, because each one of them to me are different. They may look the same to everybody else, but to me they're different, and they react different. So anyway, that's how we start out, and then as they get older, we go out on pasture in the summertime. And then when they come back, as the bulls will come out into this pen, and then we'll keep our heifers here, getting ready to get them ready for breeding. The bulls over here, at that point, they're used to me and they want to get too close. I've got a little airsoft BB gun that I use, shoots a little plastic BB, and this part of the nose on bison is really, really tender. And so I teach the bulls to give me a 15-foot radius around me. They don't get any closer than 15 foot. So gives this short-legged veterinarian a 15-foot head start, kind of, in case there's a bad situation. But normally within that 15 foot, we took really, really mean older bulls that some of them were even 6 or 7 years old, and that tender nose, you could teach them to respect you, and they wouldn't come in within that 15 foot. So then in this pen here, a lot of them will go for breeding stock, but then we also, the ones that we're going to butcher, come out of this pen here too. So it's just a kind of a cycle as our cow and calf herd are out in the back, and then as we bring the calves in, we cycle them back around, and then some of these females will go to sales or shows. The top females will go back in the herd.
So in your opinion, do you like that they're a little bit standoffish then? Do you try for that then?
Yeah, in being around, being blessed, I guess, to be around a long time, I've seen bison. Bison aren't necessarily mean, but people conceive them being mean because if there's a gate there and you're standing in the gate, that's a way for them to get away. And they're not coming at you to take you on, they're coming at you to get out or get away. And so it gets misconceived that way. and yet also we used to dehorn them all when they were young back in the early 90s, but we've got away from that because they just don't look like bison. And now they have horns, so it's like they got these weapons on their heads. They got really strong muscles in their neck, and without trying, they can hurt you by accident. I mean, a guy dropped an apple and reached down to pick it up. The bison went for the apple at the same time. When he reached to pick it up, it spooked the bison. He hung a horn in right here and ripped him from here to here. And the buffalo wasn't trying to be mean. It just, everything was there and it happened. So that's what I'm talking about. You have to be careful with them.
So to follow up with that, what's the number one thing you would say to new buffalo producers before they raised or bought their first buffalo?
Well, the main thing I'd like to say is we need younger bison breeders. I remember when I was just getting started and I was the pup and needing help and learning about how to take care of bison. And a lot of great people helped me get where I am today. So again, going back to the education thing, but the most important thing is for new bison producers, learn about your animals, enjoy them, participate in the different organizations. You have state and national organizations. Help them out. Let's help this continue to grow. When I first started, I think we were at about 350,000 bison in the United States and Canada, and now I think we're somewhere around 580,000. So you're doing a conservation program. We get accused of being the bad guy because we give this animal value by selling a hamburger out of him. The person that bought that hamburger is actually participating in conservation as well because he's helped financing this situation. So use those products, learn about the situations, and help us to continue to keep bison around. I was on a research program where Fish and Wildlife in Alaska and the Ag Canada and also the Fish and Wildlife in Canada used me to produce, we had moose, elk, all the North American wild ruminants here because the environment and the habitat, because the number of people is increasing so much that the habitats are decreasing. And if we don't start farm raising a bunch of these species of animals, including the bison, continue, and the bison is just a prime example to show how farming these animals has brought them back into existence. That's going to be the only hope for a lot of our other animals that are out there, like the moose and the caribou and a lot of these different animals. Again, like I said, another example is in 1860, there were estimated somewhere around 300 million bison roaming just from receipts and number of hides and meat that was sent back east. In 20 years, from 1860 to 1880, in 1880 there was roughly 1,000 animals left, period. That's a major kill. Those animals have, through the cooperation of farmers and the government, have rebounded up to, like I said, when I started, they were around 360,000. And now we're back up to around 580,000. So, I think us as producers and breeders, I don't want you to hurt your arm, but a good pat on the back is worth it to you if you're participating. So you're not only creating a product, an environment for your family that is an awesome environment and awesome situation for you to participate in and bring a family up in an income, but you're also conserving a species.
If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently?
I would have got the education before I killed one bison for stupidity. They say you can't cure stupidity, but there are some things you can do about it. So, yeah, get that education, learn about them, get involved in this different organizations, your state, regional, national organization, because they're out there working for you. I mean, you need to participate. They work in the government and getting you indemnities like cattle get when you get a freeze or when the pandemic of the COVID virus came in. The bison were eliminated. They weren't included, but through the organizations and the work of the organizations, the next year they got included so that we got the same benefits and help and situation. So get in there and participate.
What are some good resources that you would recommend for new producers?
Both the Canadian Bison and the NBA have educational programs like Bison 101. They have meetings that we have producers come and speak on the different things about bison, purchasing bison, judging bison, feeding bison, processing bison, helping to learn how to sell the bison meat, the cuts you want to deal with. And these are all on the internet, and all you have to do is join the association to make those available to you. Coming out and visiting with bison breeders, just go through the Bison Journal or go through the membership directory and look at bison breeders that are in your area, or maybe you're going to take a vacation or a trip. Go by and visit with these people that are at these different towns or states or places that you're going on a vacation, and they can teach you a lot. And you can see different situations, what works, don't work. They can help you out with that. And the great thing about it, if you do that, at the end of the day, that's tax deductible, your vacation. So,
where can the viewers find you?
The viewers can find me on the internet. That's the poorest place to find me because I don't conversate with the internet a whole lot. The best place is my phone. And I'm listed in the Bison directory, the North American Bison Association's directory, and in the Canadian Bison Association directory. Just call. I usually answer pretty quick, or I'll get back with you if you leave me a message, or come down and visit us here in Stratford, Oklahoma.